team with the biggest fingerprint in this year's draft is New Orleans. The Pelicans not only grabbed Zion at number 1, they picked up even more assets from turning out the Anthony Davis trade. Alonso Ball, Brandon Ingram, Josh Hart, 3 draft picks.
I think they came out on top. I have to give him an A or A+.
I think he's got a unique, young, talented roster.
You trade a player of Anthony Davis's caliber from a small market team, you're headed for a full rebuild, and they've done just the opposite in New Orleans.
So happy to be joined by Pelicans Executive Vice President of Basketball Operations, David Griffin. You know, this is such an exciting time, the home opener, but obviously these fans are going to have to wait a little bit longer to see Zion Williamson. We saw him coming into the arena. He was on crutches. Where is he right now in his recovery?
I hope he had a fresh cut. He's doing really, really well. One of the things about Zion is he's such a special athlete. He's so gifted physically. He doesn't really swell very much. He didn't really experience very much pain before the surgery. He hasn't really swollen very much since the surgery. So we're able to get him range of motion very quickly. He's in really good spirits, and I think you're going to see him be chomping at the bit to come back quite a bit before the estimate, and then it's going to be on me to protect him from himself.
Oh, so I guess that's my second question. How much are you going to be overly cautious with him? He's your rookie.
Oh, I think very much so, and there's no reason not to be, really.
Right.
I think we're a team that has so much to learn about itself. We've got so many new faces. This is an opportunity for us to sort of reset things a little bit and learn a little bit.
Yeah.
And in Zion's case, it's an opportunity for him to try to find stasis with his body. You know, our medical team did a really, really good job of giving him the ability to have more flexibility, more stability and strength. But he's a really big guy athletically. He generates a lot of torque. And so finding sort of a balance with how to continue to give him what he needs. He's really a population of one in terms of his makeup. And so for all of us to get to learn that, it takes time. And we're going to take as much as we need to.
And finding balance overall with him is going to be a test for everybody with the Pelicans. You told our Mark Spears, you call it the Zion phenomenon. What's it been like for you dealing with all the attention around a rookie?
Yeah, and it's been a blessing to have been in a situation where we were in a little bit of a crucible from a media standpoint before as well. I think what's been interesting to me is all of the hype that's surrounded our team without any real meaningful success yet. That puts you in a dangerous position, in a precarious position. So from the very beginning, we've talked very openly about ignore the noise. We haven't achieved anything. And fortunately, we have guys at the right arc in their career where they have a lot to prove and they understand that. So Zion's generated a lot of interest in this team, but our results are going to maintain that interest.
And it's not like you haven't dealt with a player before who's had a lot of attention. I mean, used to be around LeBron James,
just a little bit.
Just a little bit. But ever since you took over the reins here, you've had to deal with a lot of attention. Obviously, you took over and dealt with the AD trade. What was the hardest part of dealing with that trade for you?
I think just the nature of everything that had happened before was so public. It was very difficult to sort of operate in a vacuum and just move silently and do what you want to do. Everything was very out there. And AD and his agent, to their credit, did a really good job in the process. They were very upfront with us from the very beginning. Rob Pelinka and the Lakers were very upfront. So I think ultimately what happened was we made a deal that worked out very well for both sides. But at the same time, you never want to have things play out that publicly if you can help it.
I understand what you're saying there. I mean, in this day and age where we seem to see a lot more of the transactions and all the conversation happening actually in real time, that trade and everything that happened behind the scenes must have been just hard to keep under wraps, clearly. Now, speaking of all the acquisitions you got from the Lakers, what are your impressions of how Lonzo Ball and Brannan and Josh started in the first game?
So Brandon's a guy, if you look at the number of guys in the history of the league that at 21 years of age hit some of the statistical markers he did, it's a very, very small list. And Perk can tell you, it's a list of guys that are max players and Hall of Famers. And what has to happen now is he needs to be able to do that in a very efficient way. And our system is a system where the ball finds energy. You need to be efficient with it and not hold on to it too much. And Brandon's native tendency is to be an ISO guy. So he's learning how to be efficient without the ball in his hand. Lonzo, on the flip side, was not terribly ball dominant in LA, and we're asking him to be more so now. So he has a big learning curve in what we're trying to do as well. So again, just as it is with Zion, very young guys trying to find themselves and their footing in a system that's really unique. And I think when I look at Josh Hart, you're talking about a guy who's much more of a complementary piece. You could do almost anything with Josh and he'd figure out how to be accretive to winning, and he's already done that for us in a real positive way.
So we're going to wait and see what happens with Zion. You're saying you're going to be cautious with his approach. You're still trying to figure out with this depth, it's a lot of depth, what's going to happen with the rotation. So lastly, just how do you see the identity of this season? Are you?
Well, and we won't bow down as something that came from the team. It wasn't something that was given to the team by the business side. Won't bow down as who we want to be, and it's really building the team and the ethos of the city. We want to do, quite frankly, what the Clippers did. If you build an underlying culture of we play harder than you every night, then your depth matters. You have a chance to overachieve during those years when you don't have what everybody else thinks is elite talent on paper. It's a blessing they don't play the games on paper, but we're in a situation where we have guys that really are hungry to prove they belong here and hungry to achieve more as a group. So we're very optimistic that we can do some damage, but in the meantime, our culture is going to be, this is not an easy place to play.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports analysis and highlights, download the ESPN app. And for live streaming and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.